Benny is sitting at a bar in the Lakeside Inn drinking by himself when two men, Henry and Polly, walk up to him. They demand that he take off his jacket, which signals that he belongs to a rival biker group, but he doesn't respond. They keep talking, warning that those colors aren't allowed in their neighborhood, and threaten to take the jacket off themselves. But Benny, unfazed, calmly replies that they'll have to eliminate him to get it off. This angers them even more. They attack him right away, slamming him to the ground and beating him. But Benny refuses to stay down. When Polly heads toward his bike, Benny reaches for a small knife tucked in his shoe and slashes Henry across the face. Polly sees this and smashes Benny's head with a shovel furiously. Much later, a woman named Kathy is being interviewed by a photographer. He asks about her time with some bikers, especially Benny. Kathy says she's known nothing but trouble since meeting him, but for some reason, she hasn't left. She tries to act like she isn't all that attached to wildlife, but somehow she's still in it. Even she admits it might be more stupidity than love. The photographer asks her to talk about how it started, and she agrees. Her friend had invited her out to a bar, saying the guys would be there. But Kathy hadn't known what kind of guys she was walking into. She showed up in a casual outfit and immediately felt out of place, surrounded by bikers, tattoos, booze, and loud energy. As she pushed through the crowd looking for her friend, random men kept hitting on her until she finally spotted her. She quickly handed her the money she asked for and turned to leave. Her friend asked her to stay a little longer, but Kathy refused. She felt like her life could very well be in danger if she stayed. Still, her friend introduced her to one of the guys, who went by the name Cockroach. Kathy found the name disgusting, and even worse when she heard it was because he liked to eat bugs. That sealed it for her. She was done. Two more guys approached, but Kathy just kept getting more turned off by the whole scene. She even lied about having a date by midnight. They laughed and moved off to a corner, whispering to themselves. That scared her even more, and she stood up to leave. That's when she saw Benny, bent over a pool table. She was caught off guard by how good-looking he was. Curious, she turned back and asked her friend about him. Her friend warned her that nobody wanted to date Benny. He was too accident-prone on his bike and too explosive off it. But that didn't scare Kathy. As soon as her friend walked away to grab drinks, Benny came over and sat beside her. He smiled and said hello. She smiled back. They made small talk, but when Kathy said she had to leave, Benny didn't push. He just said okay and walked away. Right after he left, another man came up and introduced himself as the club president. He promised that nothing would happen to her and she had nothing to worry about. But Kathy didn't take him seriously. She stood up again to leave, brushing off a few more hands on her way out. While she was waiting for the bus, Benny came out and got on his bike. Once again, she couldn't help but stare. But soon the others came outside, hooting and trying to get her to go with him. In their own wild way, they coaxed her, and somehow she agreed. Her first time on a motorcycle ended up being with a carefree rider, and the ride terrified her. They zoomed off, and Kathy was scared out of her mind the entire time. But when they hit the expressway and the others joined them, even level-headed Kathy had to admit that it was simply a breathtaking sight. At the next stop, the president reminded her of his earlier promise. Benny quietly asked her to join him for a drink. By around 4 a.m., Kathy got home on the back of Benny's bike. Her boyfriend, David, was waiting on the front porch, steaming. She walked past him without answering a single question, muttering that she never wanted to see the bikers again. David glared at Benny, but Benny wasn't fazed. He rode off. Just as David turned to go inside, Benny came back and parked across the street from Kathy's house and stayed there, all night long. The next morning, Kathy comes outside and tells Benny to leave before David gets back from work. She warns that he's going to be pissed, but Benny doesn't move an inch, not until David actually comes home, and pissed, he truly is. He and Kathy have a loud fight until David finally shouts that he's done with the relationship. He storms back inside, comes out with his box, and drives off, cursing at Benny. Benny, mission accomplished, walks up to Kathy's door and knocks. He invites her to a meeting. 5 weeks later, they get married. And the rest, they say, is history. Or is it? Benny, the new husband, is simply a case. He's either on his bike, fleeing from the cops, or getting caught by them. Back at the clubhouse after one of such chases, a fellow biker proudly reads out Benny's latest police escapade like it's a war story. The others listen with pride bubbling in their eyes. Kathy's interview with the photographer continues. She talks about Johnny, the president of the club, and how much he likes Benny. He sees in Benny a kind of carefree spirit he's always wanted for himself. Unlike the rest of them, Johnny actually has a normal job. He's a truck driver. He's married, with 2 kids. Kathy seems to like his wife, Betty, more than the other biker girls. She says Betty is more sensible. People say Johnny got the idea for the club from some TV show, but Kathy says the truth is that it started out as a racing club. Johnny had been one of the racers. He once told his co-owner, Good Pastor, that he wanted to start his own riding club. Good Pastor didn't like the idea, so they split. 12 of the racers went with Johnny and formed the Vandals. Danny interviews other members of the gang. Each of them talks about how they found a kind of home in the club. Brucey the electrician says so too. Others speak on how bikers are seen by the world as loud, obscene, immoral people, and how quick society is to judge them, to label them the scourge of society. Cal, Cockroach, Zipco, everyone gets a moment to share how they joined and what the club means to them. Kathy, however, has a few bones to pick. One of them is how they take a bunch of rule breakers and then try to govern them with rules. Like the right to challenge the leader at any time, though. As she points out, only one guy ever actually tried. His name was Jack. He had interrupted a meeting asking Johnny to open a new chapter in Milwaukee, claiming he had friends who wanted in. Johnny said no. So, Jack challenged him for leadership of the gang. They settled it the biker way. Johnny asked Jack if he wanted a fist fight or a knife fight, and Jack said that it was not a fight to the death and picked the fist fight. At a muddy family picnic, no less. Jack and Johnny went at it for a short while. Johnny wasn't the biggest guy in the gang, but he was definitely the meanest. By the end of it, he'd broken Jack's finger and won the fight.
You tell your friends in Milwaukee that they can have their chapter.
Afterwards, he told Jack to go ahead and tell his friends they had permission from Johnny himself to start the new chapter. When Brucey asked why they even fought if Johnny was going to say yes, Johnny said simply that he had to be the one with the ideas. After that, the gang just kept growing. More clubs joined in. New chapters popped up. They started attracting attention from young men everywhere, especially the rebels. Once, a whole horde of them rode through a car show, turning heads, some with admiration, some with disgust. Later, deep in the woods, Zipco is grumbling about pinkos, clean-cut American boys who wear button-up shirts and tennis shorts. He doesn't believe in college or men who can't work with their hands. Danny quietly tells them he studies photography in college and plans to make a book with the photos he's taking. Zipco realizes he just insulted him, but says nothing. Rather, he just looks a little flustered. Meanwhile, Johnny and a few others notice a commotion and walk over. One of the Vandals is being accused of scratching someone else's bike. He insists he was just looking at the carburetor and didn't touch anything, but the other guy is looking to start a fight. Johnny steps in before anything breaks out and asks where they're from. They say they're from Gary. Johnny asks if they know someone called Shitty Pete. They admit that they do, that he rides with them sometimes. Johnny says he used to work with Pete years ago. Turns out they're the Gary Rogues gang. Benny sees what's happening and, mid-dialogue, rushes in and throws a punch at the leader. That guy just can't help stirring trouble. Suddenly, it's an all-out brawl. The Rogues are outnumbered, and the Vandals are clearly loving it. Fighting seems to come naturally. Benny throws a punch, but ends up smashing a car window instead. Everyone turns to look. He calmly pulls a shard of glass from his knuckles, then starts punching the nearest guy over and over, until Johnny steps in and pulls him off. The others look at Benny differently now, like they're realizing that this guy might be half, if not fully, unhinged. Later, the men gather around, chatting about bikes. Johnny asks Benny why he went off like that. To Benny, it's simple. He saw someone challenging Johnny, and there was no time to think. That's all he tells him. Johnny nods, grateful for the loyalty. but he's shaken by the raw madness of it. Back in the interview, Kathy continues. She says Benny loves to fight, just like the rest of them. She walks off, and Danny follows, passing by some of the bikers already lounging in her living room and out on the porch, even though Benny's not home. Kathy shakes her head, says it's not a good look. It's ruining her reputation in the neighborhood. Danny asks why they don't wear their colors when they're alone. Kathy replies that too many people are after the Vandals. They're not as strong when they're by themselves. She says that's exactly what happened to Benny at the Lakeside Inn. Unlike the others, Benny doesn't take his colors off. Not for anyone, not for any reason. And that day, it nearly cost him his foot. Kathy remembers what her father used to say, that it takes a lot to make a real man cry. She saw it with him. He himself only cried when his father died, and when her mother died. But Benny? He could get stitched up with no anesthesia, get beaten to a pulp, and still not shed a tear. But that day in the hospital was different. He sobbed quietly, begging her not to let them take off his foot. Said it would be the end of him on a motorcycle. She thought it was ridiculous. His license had already been suspended. He'd just had a major surgery. But riding was Benny's one problem. Kathy tells Danny that Johnny went absolutely nuts when he heard. He rolled up to the bar with a swarm of vandals and confronted the terrified owner. Johnny asked who'd beaten up the young kid that day, asked for names, addresses. The bar owner tried to resist, but eventually caved, then walked out. Johnny turned to his men and told them to make sure the perpetrators never walked again, and to burn the bar down. That night, they all stood outside watching the bar go up in flames. Kathy says she thinks the accident scared Johnny. A little. She and Benny stayed in a motel for 3 weeks. He couldn't walk, so they avoided any place with stairs. One day, Johnny came by to visit. Kathy went to get ice, and by the time she came back, she could hear him inside, trying to convince Benny to join the next ride, just 3 weeks away. Of course, Benny didn't need much convincing. After Johnny left, Kathy asked if he really planned to ride again in just 3 weeks, when the doctor had told him to stay off his feet for 3 or 4 months. Benny shrugged it off, like it was nothing. It pissed her off even more. She told him she didn't want him riding. Not now. Not so soon. That she was scared. Benny said that once he was healed, he'd leave, so she wouldn't have to worry about him or take care of him anymore. She moved in close. Told him she didn't want him to leave. They shared a warm, quiet embrace. The next day, Kathy went to see Johnny at the bar. She asked for a private word, and Brucey and the others cleared out.
Exactly who I'm talking about, Benny. You can't have him. The club.
She told Johnny straight that the club can't have Benny. Not if he's going to end up dead on a bike. She wanted Johnny to kick him out.
I'm his wife, not you.
But Johnny pushed back. Said Benny is a grown man. That no one owns him. Not even Kathy. He adamantly refused. Kathy left. Angry. Meanwhile, a young man, part of a club called RMC, has some friends come to pick him up. He sees his parents loudly and violently as he walks past to pick up his jacket and yells at them to stop. But no one pays him any heed, and his father starts hitting his mother with a belt. The boy snaps, kicks his father in the leg, takes the belt, and whips him with it. When he starts to strangle him, his mother screams at him to stop, to leave and never come back. As he walks away, she even throws a plate at him. That stops him. He turns around slowly. She softly apologizes, eyes full of fear. She looks away. It appears this one is even more demented than Benny. He leaves with his 3 friends. They get on their bikes and head to the riding picnic. When they arrive, they meet a man and ask to join the Vandals. The man points them to Johnny. Benny arrives at the picnic with Kathy. As they greet Johnny, a wolf-faced man rides up and introduces himself as Sonny. He drops a little token, his contribution to the event, and asks to join the fun. Johnny introduces the crew. Turns out, picnic is too light a word for what's going on here. There's more booze than food, more smoke than sun, and more obscenity than either. Suddenly, you see why people judge them the way they do. At night, a few of the Vandals gather around a campfire. They talk about their pasts, rejection, violence, pain. But no one cries. They laugh. They all relate. They've lived through it. Johnny quietly walks off. Benny follows him. Johnny tells him he wants to leave the club to him. Benny tells him to give it to Brucey, but Johnny refuses. He says Brucey's too soft, that Benny commands respect, and nobody would walk over him. He talks about how much effort he's poured into the club, what it's become, how the gang really needs a leader. But Benny doesn't even want it, doesn't think he deserves it. But Johnny insists. When their talk ends, Benny limps back to the fire on his crutch. There, Sonny is answering a question of why he came all the way from California. He says he came for Cal, one of the Vandals. Cal used to be in his gang, and he didn't formally leave before joining the Vandals, so Sonny was sent to handle it. But he says he likes this crew, so instead, he'll ride with them for a while. Everyone laughs, especially at the way Cal's face goes pale. Back in the interview, Kathy admits she used to think she could change Benny, like a lot of women do, but she's tired now. Every time he messes up, he says he'll leave, and she says, "Don't leave." It has become a tiresome cycle for her. At one point, she was not so sure. If Benny upped and left her the following day, maybe she'd be better off. She says he doesn't have feelings, that even death doesn't scare him, it would just feel like peace, like a better option to Benny. She goes on to talk about Brucey's death and how things changed for the worse after the car accident that killed him. The club was never the same. Johnny was at the bar when he heard the funeral home had rejected the flowers the Vandals sent. Still, he didn't back down. He rallied his men and showed up at the funeral. As Brucey's mother walked past him, she spat at Johnny with disgust, pure hatred, but Johnny didn't flinch. Later, the Vandals would sit at the bar talking about a man named Ted Swinger. Johnny says he once tried to buy off Ted's bike after he died for a good price, but Ted's father refused and locked it up in the basement. Some of the guys say they want to die on their bikes, but Johnny cuts the talk short. That's when the young RMC boys show up, asking to join the Vandals.
I ain't a kid, I'm 20.
Come on, get out of here.
Johnny refuses, says they don't take kids. The lead boy insists he's 20, but Johnny's not buying it. The kid then offers to show them their bikes, hoping that maybe that'll convince him. Johnny resists, but the argument drags on, so he gives in. He motions for the boys to lead the way and follows with a few Vandals. When they get there, nobody's impressed. But the young man, leader of the group, the Renegades, explains that they built their bikes from scraps, piece by piece, and have been riding since they were kids. He pleads to be let in, says he'll do anything, robbery, murder, whatever it takes. Johnny says fine, but only one of them, just the leader. Without hesitation, the kid walks over, leaving his friends behind. Johnny instantly shoves him back. Any guy willing to ditch his friends that fast has no loyalty, and Johnny is repulsed by such behavior. It is definitely not Vandal material. He tells him to get lost and never come back. The boy, humiliated and angry, pulls a knife and lunges at Johnny. But Johnny moves fast. Despite being cut, he puts him down quickly. Then tells his friends, the same ones he abandoned minutes ago, to take care of it. The Vandals are visibly disgusted. Back in the interview, Kathy tells Danny that after he left, things got really bad. Danny says he moved away after finishing school, but came back because he needed to know what happened to the guys. She tells him the club split about a year after Brucey died, and after Danny left, there were too many people with different visions and ideologies, causing constant chaos. New guys came in, and they didn't just bring booze. They brought drugs, pot, which means trouble. Kathy tells Danny what happened when Cockroach decided to quit. He wanted to fulfill his dream of becoming a motorcycle cop, but the rebels saw it as betrayal. As soon as he turned his back, they took a burning log from the fire and smashed his head with it. Inside, some guys had just stolen a dress for Kathy when Johnny called Benny and the others to come help Cockroach. The moment her allies left, a group of men turned their attention to her. The leering started, and then they lunged, trying to drag her into a room. Kathy screamed over and over, calling for Benny. but he wasn't around. Just when it seemed too late, Johnny arrived. He stopped them. One of the men said they thought she was someone else, said it was a mistake because of the dress. Later, after Cockroach got discharged, arm in a cast, he came to Johnny. He told him about the attack and that he wanted out. But he was scared, and he needed Johnny's help. Johnny promised to take care of it. After Cockroach left, Johnny met Benny, told him to bring a pistol to Cockroach's place. That same day, just before Benny left with the gun, Kathy caught him, told him she couldn't do this anymore, that the near assault had traumatized her, and that if it had gone any further, it would have broken her. She begged him to leave with her, to go somewhere far from the club, but Benny refused strongly, asking her what exactly she expected or wanted from him. Then he left to meet Johnny. That night, Johnny shot Cockroach's leg in his home, then told him to disappear and stay gone. As they got back in the car, Benny asked Johnny why. Johnny said he took care of it. Benny asks if that was how he took care of Kathy too. He was appalled and sick of what the club had become. That was not the Vandals he joined. He walked away from Johnny. Johnny tried to stop him, told him to take over the club, that he couldn't run it anymore. But Benny refused again, said he didn't want anything from anybody, then got on his bike and rode off. And just like that, Benny disappeared, left Kathy, left the Vandals. Kathy tells Danny that Sonny used to say she'd never be able to be with a non-Vandal, because in her own way, she had become one too. She also tells him that just a year after Benny disappeared, the same kid Johnny rejected for turning on his friends came back to challenge him for leadership. He said he became a Vandal through the Milwaukee chapter, that he and some others didn't like Johnny's leadership. He challenged Johnny to a knife fight. It was obvious he meant to kill him. Johnny gave him a time and place. That evening, as Johnny left the house, his wife asked him to pick up eggs. There was a heaviness to the moment, like something final was about to happen. On his way, he stopped by Kathy's, asked if Benny had come around. She said no, but that she heard he rode out to Indiana some months ago. She asked Johnny what he needed. He said nothing. He just gave her some advice, then left. That cold October night, the old Vandals sat in their cars to watch the fight. The young bloods came on bikes. However, when the renegade kid stepped off his, he didn't wait. He just pulled out a gun and shot Johnny straight through the heart. Kathy tells Danny that this moment marked the end of the golden age of motorcycles. After that, the kid took over. He turned the Vandals into a real gang. It grew, with chapters across the Midwest. Drugs, prostitution, gambling, assassinations even. Some of the guys stayed, some died, some got jobs. Cockroach became a motorcycle cop, like he always wanted. As for Benny, he was at a bar when he heard about Johnny's death. He paid for his drink, walked out, and went home. Back to Kathy. She found him sitting on the porch and joined him. And then, for the second time in their relationship, he broke down, sobbing in her arms. Later, they moved to Florida, just like she had wanted back then. Danny asks if Benny still rides. Kathy says no, not since Johnny's death. He works with his cousin now, and she believes he doesn't even miss riding anymore. She says they're finally happy. Then she looks down at Benny, sitting outside with a neighbor. They smile at each other, and for once, Benny's smile actually looks content.